the slowest pace of change you will ever experience is right now. It's only going to get faster. And to be able to survive in that environment, you have to be able to adapt and change. The way that organizations, individuals and organizations need to do that is to let go of calcified identities. We are a company that makes X, or I am a professional that does Y, and really think about themselves in terms of a purpose and a passion and a set of values that can drive decision making.
Hello and welcome to a whole new episode of Engati CX. I'm your host, Jeremy D'Souza, and today we have a technology expert with us on the show. But before I introduce you to our amazing guest, allow me to quickly introduce you to the magic of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, available across 14 channels with more than 45,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, the video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 400,000 visitors annually. But now, we're not just a chatbot platform. We've even launched a brand new state-of-the-art live chat module, which you should definitely check out. Now, here's our amazing guest. Chris Shipley is the author of the Adaptation Advantage. She has documented, influenced, and predicted the impact of technology on business and society for over 30 years. As a journalist, analyst, executive producer, and startup mentor, she has witnessed firsthand the transformation brought about by digital innovation and was among the first to identify emerging technology trends, including the rise of web applications, early smartphone technologies, and social media. She now spends her time curating and advising communities of entrepreneurs, journalists, and technology thought leaders as they navigate through an empowering digital future. Chris, we're really thrilled to have you on the show with us today.
I'm very delighted to be with you.
Okay, so before we dive into our amazing interview with Chris, don't forget to subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon to get access to all the exclusive content from thought leaders around the world. Chris, my first question to you is, what, according to you, is the future of work, and how has the current crisis impacted it?
I think what we are looking at in the future of work and in life is that change is happening very quickly, and we have to be able to absorb those changes and react to them, and be, as we say in the book, be very adaptive to sort of whatever's coming at you, recognizing new challenges, taking them on, recreating yourself and your organization repeatedly over time. And that means generally that you've got to let go of these very, what I would call, calcified sets of identities. If we think of ourselves in one particular silo, it will be very difficult to navigate the world when that silo is somehow eliminated. Right? So you have to be able to have a much more a broader focus, not only on your personal, your professional identity, but on what you do as an organization to be able to adjust to changes that come at us. The pandemic has been a great example of that, right? No one 8 months ago could have predicted where we are today. And what we have seen are organizations that are thriving because they looked at the new circumstances of their business and adapted very quickly. And we've seen a number of organizations and businesses, sadly, many that have failed, some not by anything other than the just financial hardship of lockdown and quarantining, but many because they weren't able to think about how they could reinvent themselves. And so as a result, they stuck to what they knew rather than thought about what they could be. And in those instances, I think with that failure to adapt, accelerated their demise.
Absolutely. Adaptation is so important. I mean, you could just look at catering for an example. So many of them just thought, we're restaurants, we're going to stay being restaurants. But you could just become a delivery kitchen now.
Right. Absolutely. We've seen in the United States, if you think of yourself as a restaurant where people must come into your property, sit at a table, and be served, that business is not going to exist well for a very long time. But if you think of yourself as as a gourmet chef who creates custom meals, beautiful charcuterie with access to a supply chain, and you think of yourself as a gourmet grocery store, maybe you've got a different way to think about your business. I think about hotels. They're sitting empty in cities all around the world because tourism has gone to zero. There are not conventions and business meetings. But some of these businesses have said, you know what, we are a place with a lot of rooms for people to be. Could we be an overflow social bubble for an organization that needs to quarantine their executives and have them together to do some work? Or could we be the isolation space for college campuses who need to take students who have tested positive for COVID and separate them from the rest of the campus in order to keep their campus healthy, but give those students a chance to recover and thrive? If you think of yourself differently, you think of yourself as a place to accommodate rather than a tourist hotel, you start to see new opportunities for your business.
Absolutely. It's not about what we have been doing for the past 100 million years, but more of, we've got this, what can we do with it, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, Chris, my next question to you is, even though it was impossible to predict the current situation, how can we go about anticipating future market shifts? And what, in your opinion, would be the next big tech in the next 3 years that would dramatically change brand relationships?
Yeah, the honest answer to that is I don't know, and I'm not sure how we can know, right? I think we know that our future technologies are going to be very much driven by data, by artificial intelligence, by levels of automation that we haven't yet anticipated or experienced. But I think that what is to me clearer is that our paths forward are going to be far more customer-centric and co-created. So that rather than companies or businesses saying, I believe a market needs this thing, here it is, here's this new technology, have at it, is going to be in conversation and engagement with markets and customers that will identify paths forward with companies. And in some cases, that's going to mean the development of new and exciting technologies. In other cases, it's going to mean really different business models that can be a driver of innovation just as much as some new algorithm might be. So I think we're going to see a future that's shaped by and built on a lot of the technologies that we're seeing today around that broadly embrace this idea of digital transformation and will accelerate that transformation going forward.
Absolutely. It's going to be based to some extent on the stuff we already have, but it's also going to involve, actually speaking to your customers, understanding their needs, rather than just saying, I think this is going to be useful, so here, take it.
Right. And I think what we're going to see is customers and companies coming together and creating together. It's this co-creation model. And we're always seeing some of that, but I think it gets really exciting when we think about just recently spent some significant time with a group of journalists, and we start talking about what is it to actually collect data, collect reporting from your reader community, and build stories together that really give a new and more, I would say, confident level of confidence and builds trust with the readership because you're doing these things together. Well, imagine that with all kinds of businesses where you build a significant relationship and a trust relationship with your customer because they're deeply invested in their success and your success coming together.
Definitely. Chris, what I would think is that you would find younger organizations probably going on this path much easier than older organizations who have kind of been stuck in their ways, right?
Well, in some cases, sure. Yet those are very well-resourced organizations, and when they can open themselves up to this idea of restructuring around adaptation, where they can look at alternate ways to organize and to engage their employees and their customers, they have deep resources to do that. And I think that we'll see those large organizations finding ways to collaborate with many of the more agile, smaller organizations in this sort of co-creation collaboration model, where small adaptive groups can come in and be a bit of, inject a little new DNA into those old companies and help them move forward, where the older companies have those resources to survive. That said, we're also seeing that the half-life of an organization, their time on the S&P 500, is much reduced. And so, while we think about, a Facebook as this young upstart, it's actually moving into, on a relative scale, a monolith stage as new businesses come, new companies build up around it. And so, it's going to be really interesting to see, can these new big tech companies find ways to remain as agile as they were in their early days, as younger companies come up around them. And I think they will. I think that they were built with a different set of DNA than some of the companies that were dominant 100 years ago, that were built around energy and big manufacturing and manufacturing scale. Scale in a digital economy looks very different, and I think has adaptivity built into it. So it's going to be interesting. I think that we'll see, I hope we see, and I talked about this maybe a dozen years ago, this idea of companies acting more as a peloton, where they come together for purpose and then reassemble for a new purpose going forward. And so that we keep all the agility and value of small companies, but where they come together to work on big things together to accomplish that. So I think that's a model that works for invention and innovation. It doesn't necessarily work for investor scale businesses. And so we have to think about, how do we measure success of a company when it stays small and agile, where today we reward big and cumbersome. Can we shift that reward system so that small agile companies are actually valued very highly? And if we can do that, then I think we've got a lot of flexibility in our whole corporate structures. And it's not just a big company versus startup kind of mentality.
Pretty interesting. Chris, in your opinion, what really changed in the startup ecosystem of the technology industry in recent times in the 21st century?
Well, I think a lot of people will tell you that the barrier to entry is so much lower, right? That the price of tools, the reach into a global workforce, the ability to collaborate across regions and time zones puts a lot of resources easily within reach of someone with a smart idea and the willingness and the ability to work on it. I think that is true, and we see a lot of we've been able to see a lot of companies emerge out of that that availability of low barrier to entry tools and resources. It still takes a lot of time and money and heavy lift to grow a business to scale. And I think the thing that happened, around the last recession, was that we saw lots of people starting companies because the resources were readily available, but we didn't see as many of those companies really growing and surviving out of that bubble. We saw a lot of waste, if you will, because the capital and the resources are still required in order for a company to grow and scale. And you've got to do that really fast. You've got to do that at speed because things are changing so quickly. So it's been an interesting, I think there's more opportunity, and to gain that opportunity, to take advantage of that opportunity, you've just got to move so much faster than you ever did before. And you still need to go to identify sources of capital and resource to be able to grow.
Very interesting. Chris, tell us about your book, The Adaptation Advantage, and how exactly should organizations navigate through the future of work?
Well, the thesis of Adaptation Advantage is pretty straightforward, and it's basically the pace of change, the slowest pace of change you will ever experience is right now. It's only going to get faster. And to be able to survive in that environment, you have to be able to adapt and change. The way that organizations, individuals and organizations need to do that is to let go of calcified identities. We are a company that makes X, or I am a professional that does Y, and really think about themselves in terms of a purpose and a passion and a set of values that can drive decision making. So some people call that culture. I think there's leadership involved in that. There's the ability to empower organizations to learn and to unlearn and to relearn continuously so that they can better serve their markets, their customers. And I think what we posit in the book is that creating an organization around the idea of purpose and culture will allow your products, the things that get sold in exchange for value in the marketplace, to change freely as the market requires, but keeps the organization very focused on the kind of framework around which creation occurs, so that your capacity to think and rethink, to learn, becomes the value of the organization, and the products, the brand, are sort of representations of that, or the byproduct of having that culture and capacity and the leadership to be adaptive. So that's the book in a nutshell, and I think it's an important book right now because when we wrote it and finished the writing and sent it to the publisher at the end of last year, we didn't anticipate a pandemic. And certainly we had all kinds of plans for how you would launch a book in a normal world. Those all got quite disrupted, and we ourselves had to be very adaptive. But I think the book proves to be very timely in that it's just one more change that came at us unexpectedly. And for us as individuals, as the authors, but also for the reader, experiencing not only an unexpected disruption, but a pace of change. I believe it's some of the big consulting companies, McKinsey and others, who are saying that we have accelerated the anticipated timeline of digital transformation has been accelerated 2x in the last 6 months. And if you think about the organizations who said we're never going to have a distributed workforce, we'll never be a work-at-home company, who had to become that overnight, we see that we're capable of tremendous amount of change, tremendous amount of adaptation when the situation arrives. And so, all in all, I think that the book it provides a framework for that to develop that muscle of adaptivity, and I think we were very optimistic in writing them. Lots of people, I think, look to a future of work and think it's algorithms and robots, they're going to take over all our jobs and we're going to be unemployed. And I think our perspective is, it's very human, and it's the very essence of humanity, our creativity, our ability to change and adapt and to rethink and create, that will be the most important skills going forward. And we're very optimistic about human beings when those skills are nurtured and set onto new ideas.
Absolutely. It kind of boils down once again to, am I a hotel for tourists, or can I be a social distancing center too during these times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you said about people being worried that, hey, all my job's going to be taken over by a robot, I'm going to sit unemployed. No, folks. A robot's going to help you do your job better. A robot's going to take away those annoying, monotonous, frustrating tasks that you have to do all day and allow you to do higher level work, things that you would actually enjoy.
That's right. And they're going to do things that are dangerous. We right now I'm so grateful for all the frontline workers who are, whether they're doctors and nurses and staff in hospitals or grocery clerks who stand every day and are in close contact with people and taking personal risk to be of service. Imagine what parts of those jobs could be done by algorithm, by machine, and therefore create more safety for more people. Robots, I think, when I use the term robots loosely, but technology can be a real aid in augmenting, again, the monotonous work, the dangerous work, and freeing us to do the work that is uniquely human.
Certainly. I mean, just try to imagine how much easier it is for maybe a bomb disposal unit to send in a robot rather than having a human risk their life over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
Yeah,
I'd rather a bunch of metal blow up than a human being.
absolutely.
Exactly.
Chris, are there any other insights that you'd like to leave us with today?
I know that we are in a really challenging time, and a lot of us around the world are getting, what I call pandemic fatigue. It's just we want things to go back to the way they were. And I would say that we're not going to go back anywhere. We're only going to be going forward into a set of circumstances that I started to refer to as the now normal. Not a new normal, but a now normal. And the reason I use the term or the word new now rather than new is that it connotes that it will be normal for a period of time, and things will change again, and we'll find a new way to be normal for a moment, for that now, and it will continue. That cycle will continue going forward. And I think that I know that is for many people very frightening. What are the things that will disrupt us? A global pandemic, or who knows what, environmental crisis. There are lots of reasons for people to be wringing their hands right now. But at the same time, I have great optimism that when human potential can be unleashed, aided by technology or not, we can solve all those problems. There's not anything that can come at us except for, I don't know, maybe an asteroid that that will put us down. And I think that, to me, that's even among the fatigue of the pandemic, the stress of climate change, the world politics that we anxiously live in, the ability for humans to create and continually recreate their future is what is so, I think, cause for optimism, and really the basis of the book we wrote.
Absolutely. Our normal needs to adapt to our now. That's what I'm going to be taking away from this entire conversation. And as you said, we are resilient. We will push through. And even if there is an asteroid, we will find a way to blow it up before it reaches us.
I suspect so.
Okay, Chris, this has been amazing. I love this conversation. Where can people reach out to you, and how can they get your book?
Yeah, so the book is available on Amazon. It's available from a lot of local bookstores, and given that small business needs our help, I'd love to encourage people to find their local bookstore and buy online from them. The adaptationadvantage.com is certainly where you can get more information about the book. I am at C. Shipley on Twitter and other platforms, and I absolutely welcome the conversation. I would love to continue that conversation with you, Jeremy, and with your listeners.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Chris, for giving us so much of your time and such amazing, absolutely fantastic insights today. Guys, we will be back with a new episode and a new expert really soon, so stay tuned and hit that subscribe button if you forgot to earlier, so you never miss out on a single episode.